hashtag replay just so I know that you're watching.
Property guru George Markoski from Positive Property Solution joins us now. George, good morning to you.
How are you, George?
Our goal, our unstoppable mission is to empower 10,000 Australians to create financial freedom through investing in property using the Markoski method. Okay guys, we've got 10 seconds left. Can't wait to show you a great, amazing session tonight. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, freedom fighters. Hey guys, how you all doing today? I'm Christina Markoski, your host for tonight's session, and we've got our lovely member Ryan Bowles here joining us. Hey Ryan, how are you? Your microphone didn't work.
How you going there?
There we go. Hey, gotcha. Excellent. Good, thanks. Awesome. Great to have you here tonight. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ryan's actually a member of ours on our program at Positive Property. Ryan, how long have you been a member for?
Only since about February, but known you guys a little bit longer than that now.
Yeah, fantastic. And how did you actually find out about us?
Well, I think George and I had sort of been hanging out in similar circles for some time in the business world, but never really connected. It was only until my wife, Kaylee, and I started delving into looking for property that we started to put the word out as to who had ideas, who had lessons, who had wins out in the marketplace. I mean, that could essentially guide us. And one of our Facebook posts blew up with hundreds of comments. And George was one of the people there that was came highly recommended from a good friend and client of ours, Barry Maglidity.
Lovely, fantastic. So just before we get into, I guess, your story and your journey and what we've actually done for you, everyone who's watching, please let us know that you can see us, you can hear us okay. Type in hashtag live if we're live and loud coming through. And if you're watching the replay, type in hashtag replay.
It's cool to see all the comments coming through.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys. Fantastic. So, Ryan, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and, who you are, what you do.
Well, I'm up here on the somewhat cloudy Gold Coast at the moment, generally pretty sunny, and been here for 22 years. My wife, Kaylee, and I, we own a business helping business coaches online to actually grow and profit from Facebook groups. And we've been doing that for about 3 years now. So our business is online, clientele worldwide. Apart from that, we love rock climbing, we love hot curries, and more than anything, we love being here on the Gold Coast.
Fantastic. Awesome. Beautiful. So being a business owner, I guess it can be challenging to invest in property. We'll get into that a little bit later. Essentially, why did you want to invest in property in the first place? What sort of was that light bulb moment that you had? Like, I'm really curious because you made the Facebook post to obviously seek for the right mentors and the right people, the right company to help you. But what was it that made yourself and Kaylee actually go, okay, we want to invest in property or check out our options?
I think long term, it comes back to what we learned from our parents. And it's funny, the things that we grow up with tend to either push us towards goals or away from goals. And so I guess the family background that Kaylee and I come from, we consider ourselves very blessed to have been brought up in households that believe in the power of business, but also the power of investing in regards to property and so forth. So I think that was always ingrained, whether that's like the Australian dream to own your own property, or whether it's the culture as well, but really had no idea. So for me, I'm 32 years old and really thought by this stage I would have and be living in my own property. and I guess a lot of those expectations along the way, you know, those learnings didn't stack up to actually enter the market. And so for Kaylee and I, sort of looking, especially in the current times, as to how hot the property market is, it really seemed like just a situation that we weren't going to learn our way into on our own.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to lean really on people who have done it before us and who have done it successfully before us, not just people who have had homes and then lost them, or have homes but they're struggling or limping along. We really wanted to speed the process up and hire the help that could ultimately get us across the line. So initially it was from our parents, the idea that, you know, property is a legacy, you know, type operation that you build for your children and your children's children.
Yeah.
But then I guess the aspiration grew inside of us to step into that as well and learn the ropes. And that's why we came to you guys.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. So it was, I guess, your parents that sort of said you should look at getting an investment property rather than an owner occupier?
Well, that's probably a little bit of a different question. That was a huge learning on its own as to buying to live versus owner versus investment. And the whole idea around rent vesting had never, you know, occurred to us either. And so we were going to buy literally 1 kilometer that way on the street that we're on right now, which, if anybody knows the Gold Coast and Currumbin especially, it is one of the hottest like suburbs in Australia, and property that way is like north of $1 million no matter what you touch. And so we were going to buy here simply because we knew the area. We know it's a fantastic area, but I'm so glad we didn't.
Yeah, so you were going to go old school. You were going to buy a family home in the suburb that you live in, that you're familiar with, and that was going to be essentially your first home. How much would have you been looking at for the potential purchase price if you did go down that path?
Seriously, like looking at the home, it was nearly a knockdown job. So we took that advice of worst house on the best street, which it truly was. But you would have had to flatten the place, if not rip out, you know, 3 or 4 of the rooms, including bathrooms and kitchen, to actually be happy and content living in that area. And so we wouldn't have paid or wanted to pay more than $500,000, but it ended up going for high 600, close to 700.
Yeah. So basically 700,000, and that's your entry point for a family home. So looking at, I guess, you're at a bit of a fork in the road essentially when you met us, and it was perfect timing because I guess we really explained and educated you and Kaylee on the whole concept of rent vesting. So what were, I guess, the key takeaways from that initial conversation?
Well, as you remember, we definitely did our due diligence, and we did a lot of due diligence. And George has said to me we've been sort of the toughest client ever to come on board and caused him the most grief. And I said, don't worry, mate, I'll definitely pay it back to you. Once this system works for us, we'll be telling everybody about it. And so learning that concept in our sort of due diligence, you know, having no idea what a portfolio looked like or how to grow it. We also spoke to buyers agents as well. And we were really like slapped in the face at some, you know, offerings of like $15,000 per property ongoing forever. You know, they would do the research, which was fantastic. We were looking for help on research in the area, in what was the right property for us, etc., ready for capital growth. However, paying $15,000 per property for that fee was just wild. So I guess that's why having the conversations with you guys, it totally made sense. And it's really paid off for us for sure.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And what was the sort of the light bulb moment when you realised that you'd be better off essentially if you were to rent where you want to live in that suburb instead of putting all your money and hard-earned cash into an owner-occupier and then paying, you know, a loan over 30 years or whatever? What made you sort of have that aha moment with going, okay, if I buy an investment property, I'm going to be much better off long-term?
Yeah, I think you've got so much more flexibility for the area that you purchase in. as an investment. And that just makes sense. Like where we've invested, we necessarily don't want to live because we're really happy in Currumbin. We've both spent over 20 years here, or the south end of the Gold Coast. And so where we've purchased, we wouldn't want to move, 30 kilometers from where we are, let alone, 80 to 100. So that side of things gives you flexibility of the area. Also for growth, we think that this area here in Currumbin, sure, it can grow further, but it has already peaked to some degree at its maximum versus where we've purchased.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it was a case of the area in your own backyard per se had already gone up on that growth curve, and that's really hard to even understand or to know, when is the right entry point into what suburb in what sort of a market. So that was, I guess, the foundational education you got with Positive Property. And
totally.
What was the pivotal moment? Was it just realizing, hey, I'm going to have to pay, $700,000 to buy an owner occupier, and I'm going to be stuck paying off this big mortgage, versus if you get an investment property? What were the two, I guess, futures looking like for you when you were weighing up that decision with which way to go?
Well, let me frame it this way, and I hope you don't mind me having a wine. Finished
Not
work
at
for
all.
the day, and so
I'll enjoy my coffee and my water. Go ahead.
I'm ready to party with everyone on the live call with us. I'll frame it this way, that the idea or concept that I had in my mind of a large mortgage that literally, you were controlled by, as to, having to make sure your business was operating and profitable, making sure that customers were coming through the door, all of those things were always tied in my mind to the mortgage, depending on that size of the mortgage. The way that our first investment property has been set up, honestly, like Kaylee and I have reflected on it so many times, and we're so grateful for it. We just stop and laugh and kind of go, we don't have to think about the mortgage at all. It's paying for itself, which to me is still like a mind-blowing concept, that no matter how well or poorly our business performs or how it ebbs and flows, the mortgage is taken care of simply because of the setup that it's under, which is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another important thing to, I guess, realize is that if you had have gone down that path of buying an owner occupier that was worth, $700,000, you would have had the one property, and that's it.
Totally.
They lend you any more money.
Right. Yeah, that's something we would have never even considered. And the fact that I didn't see owner occupying a property as a debt versus an asset.
Yeah, absolutely. And it brings me back to, I guess, the principles of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. For those of you who don't know, it's a book by Robert Kiyosaki. And,
it's up here somewhere.
Yeah, on the shelf there. Love it.
Yeah.
And he talks about the house that you live in, your owner occupier is actually a liability, not really an asset, versus an investment property, which is a real asset, because you're not having to pay it off yourself. You're getting the tenant and the tax man to cover your mortgage, and anything else left over, that's just cream.
Yeah, it was definitely an exciting moment for us when we worked out, or we were educated on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had a comment, if I had have known what I know now, I would have been a rent vestor. So you and Kaylee, you're rent vesting now.
Totally. Yep. So where we are right now, this is my parents' home. So we're fortunate enough to rent here. My mum's she's off camper vanning and gallivanting across the country at the moment.
Living the life.
She's living the life, and so we're grateful to be able to obviously utilize and rent here, but it just makes sense as well. So we actually are considering other places as well to actually rent, but for the time being, we're totally grateful to utilize the situation as it is and start to build from here.
Yeah, 100%. And just having that flexibility is, I think, just so valuable to be able to keep growing your property portfolio and, keep adding and getting the properties that create you a passive income and pay the mortgage by themselves.
Totally. And I'll be completely transparent with everyone on the call here. do you know how weird it is to still say that you rent from your family home, but you're about to settle on your second investment property? Like, that is a very strange thing, and I still don't know how to like confidently own that and being completely transparent with everybody. It's a very strange concept, but to know that we are setting ourselves up for our children eventually, and for their children is a really that gives me confidence for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is such a mindset shift. And that's the important thing to realize, that not everyone's going to get it. And that's totally okay, because the
Totally.
most important thing is you getting ahead in life. You know, people are going to have this stigma. Oh, rent money is dead money, or, why are you paying someone else's mortgage? But you got to realize that you're actually putting your investor's hat on now. And now we're using strategy. We're being strategic with why we're renting. And it's not forever. It's just for now. And a bit of
Totally.
short-term renting for a massive long-term gain is so, so worth it.
Yep, you're 100% right. That is definitely something we think about. Like, when we all look back to the 7th of October last year, we can all think back to what we were doing, right? You know, we had just come back from a trip to Cairns at that point in time. And that only seems like yesterday. Like a year ago, that time has flown by. And I know that the next year is going to fly by, and the next year after that. And so, yeah, short term, whatever you want to call the arrangement as it is right now, for long term investment, down for that any day of the week.
Absolutely. And I think it also comes back to a bit of that delayed gratification. A lot of
Totally.
people I speak to want to go out and buy the big family home and have, all the luxuries, all the bells and whistles. And I'm like, you can have that, just maybe not now.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
Getting your investment properties now, building your wealth now, sowing the seeds is going to mean that you have those options in the future to get your dream home. And property, investing in property is not easy, and it's not a get rich quick. You're not going to make $1 million overnight, but it's slow and steady. You get into the market, you use a strategy that will set you up and give back for the rest of your life. And then you're on the right path. And then you've got options later down the road. It really is a case of delaying that instant gratification and just setting things up correctly now, so that 5-10 years in the future, you can have that $1 million home. You can have that dream car. You can have whatever your heart desires when it comes to those materialistic goals. But you're not going to have those options, or, you'll be in massive debt if you don't sow the seeds and get the right investments right now.
It's totally not a get rich quick scheme. It's totally a get rich slow scheme. Like,
Yeah.
it has been, although our journey has been quite fast tracked because of you guys, the process still has been like, it's boring and it's slow and it's repetitive, right?
Yeah.
But that's what is bringing in the results. So at the end of the day, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. So I guess, what were the challenges that you had to solve when you were looking at joining Positive Property and coming on board and investing? What were the things that made you want to join Positive Property and get, personally coached one-on-one to get the right results? You mentioned, research. That was obviously something that was very important to you. Is there anything else, or could you expand on, why you needed the right research?
Honestly, the biggest challenge was just mindset.
Wow.
Just overcoming the ability to allow somebody with something that's so personal and so long term to actually trust them with that. And so that's why our due diligence took a long time. But you guys have got all of the runs on the board, and we wanted to make sure we were sure on that decision before we stepped in. And hence why George calls me a real challenge.
Absolutely. I'm really surprised to hear that the biggest thing for yourself and Kaylee was actually mindset. So was it like just the belief, like believing that you could successfully invest in property, or was it a combination between like believing that you could do it, getting the results, but also finding someone that had the runs on the board to execute that?
I always knew like whatever we put our mind to, we can do. So if that was going to be on our own, it may take longer and maybe
Yeah.
cost more in the long run. But more the mindset around just trusting somebody else with a big decision as to
Yeah.
you guys handling the decision as to finding property, trusting George and you with your expertise in terms of the hot 100 around the country, top 100. And that was a big jump. As when you called us with our first property, how we had
Yeah.
to also jump that mindset into, wow, we've got a property offered to us right now. Now, do we take the second leap of actually stepping into that as well? So, a couple of big hurdles there.
Yeah.
But on this side of the fence, I can tell everybody on the call, it has been the best investment we have made hands down for our long-term future to date.
Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. It's really good to, I guess, understand and know what the initial things were that made you look at joining, you know, a company like ours. So that's amazing. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ryan. So once you did, obviously, you came on board, you joined the program, you were getting coached and mentored by myself personally. What did we do with your journey, and just tell us, I guess, how that sort of unfolded for you?
The first thing, I guess, was really mapping out our goals based on our income capacity and what our current setup was like. That was an eye-opening experience for sure, because, you know, I'd never applied for a loan. Personally, I've never had a credit card or any of those things. So that was a big learning and a huge experience. And then from there, setting up our goals as to what sort of properties we would be looking at purchasing over the next 5 years, we mapped that out. And our ideal property in terms of a townhouse, sort of 3 bedroom in that 350 to 450 bracket, was different to what I was expecting. And so mapping out that was super helpful in terms of getting a roadmap down for the next year or two, especially.
Yeah, fantastic. And what impact did that have for yourself and Kaylee, I guess, in your sort of immediate future, but also for your financial future and moving forward with what you're doing?
Oh, well, it's huge. We obviously secured and settled on our first property in July, and I think we joined in February, I said, which was just incredible. I was setting myself up for a longer period before finding a property, so we feel very blessed that we were offered a property. It affects our the depreciation schedule on our income with the business is definitely an upside to that. And now learning the process of the first property, I'm now understanding this process for the second property, which we're currently in the process of. So a couple of things there. I don't know if I answered the question exactly, but hopefully it's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. No, that's fantastic. And so I guess diving a bit deeper into how it affected you personally, I mean, obviously it meant that you were going to be renting for a little bit longer. Lifestyle-wise, I guess, did much change?
Literally nothing. Knowing that that mortgage is taken care of. I will say that like we are very content in the way that we live. We don't necessarily go out and splash money about here, there, and everywhere. So we were already living that way. So nothing's really changed. I don't think, I heard Warren Buffett talk about it just recently, that the difference between him and a college, kid isn't much different. He eats the same food. He wears similar clothes. He still rides in a car to get around places. And apart from that, like the only thing that's really different is when he flies somewhere, it's in a private jet, and the home that he lives in is in a, a different home, but he still watches a TV that's of a similar quality. And so nothing too much has changed personally in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's good to know. So it's one of those things where, you're still living your life, you're still going out, doing things, having fun, having a good time, and you just got your investment property now that's ticking away in the background, making you
Totally.
money. So
Yeah, and it's
that's
definitely
great.
incentivized us to push towards filling up the offset account as well,
Yeah.
which is just a great goal to aim for, which has been lots of fun.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more, I guess, about the strategy behind the offset account and what we did there with setting up more the nuts and bolts for, the structure behind how to
Sure.
pay off the mortgage.
I'm laughing because like I'm still learning this process for everyone watching, and I think it's so funny that reflecting that we've got our first investment property, but I still don't understand everything in the process. So
Yeah.
learning about the offset account was fantastic. That the more cash you stack into there, it lowers the interest rate on the loan that you are paying off. And so
Yeah.
every dollar you put in there lowers that interest, and you can access the cash in your offset account at any time at all. So we've just been working at pushing cash into the offset account and noticeably seeing the repayments come down and down because we're paying less interest on an interest only loan at this stage every single month.
Yeah, fantastic. Beautiful. And I guess that's part of the strategy with Positive Property. Obviously, you get a coach who looks at your specific sort of situation, and then we've got our fundamental principles like going interest only generally is really good for investments, and also having an offset account or a redraw facility that you can attach to that investment so you can pay down the mortgage, and whatever you put in there is equivalent to you having paid off the principal. So the way that loan reflects is that you're having paid off that amount, so you're saving that money on interest, which is really handy, and that means it increases your cash flow too.
It does. And another learning that I've had in this process, especially around property number 2 at the moment, is how much we should be using the bank's money rather than our own money. And
Yeah.
so this has been a fun process coming to property number 2, that I saw lender's mortgage insurance as like this taboo, do not want to go there. It means you've got, no capacity to earn or bring income in, etc. However,
Yeah.
when I started to understand that I could spend $6,000 to acquire $35,000 from the bank, that deal made sense every day of the week to acquire a second property. And so that's where we are currently with property number 2.
Yeah, nice. And I think that's a really good, important trick. If you're looking at, obviously, in your acquisition phase where you're growing your portfolio, if you can have that option of using a 10% rather than the full 20, that might mean you can get 3 properties instead of 2, which, you've got 3 sets of rent coming in every week. You got 3 sets of tax coming back, 3 sets of equity going up. 3 properties are better than 2.
I agree. I agree.
So we want to really multiply, obviously, your results and what you can do. It's not a black or white situation. Obviously, you need to talk to a broker to see if that is a potential for you. But just being open-minded to things like that. And the thing with the lender's mortgage insurance as well is you can obviously use the bank's money to pay that off as well.
Totally. I'm
So
loving
that's
every step of the journey.
bit of a bonus there. Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. So I guess looking at what you've done and your journey that you've had, we got your first investment property, mortgage is paying for itself. Can you remember like cash flow, how positive per week you are?
I could pull it up. To be honest, it was in the, I'll say $60 to $75 per week range, just to be
Yeah.
really safe.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I'm not too fussed by that now that I
Yeah.
know that it is positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was $60 to $75 somewhere there. And we played with really, I guess, low expectations. We put all of the figures high in our conservative, that's the way. We played with high fees from lawyers to strata to all of the things that you add in to the mix, and we played with a real conservative cash flow calculator, and it came out well and truly above that.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what we do on our program is we actually use an amazing tool called the cash flow calculator. And this lets you know exactly how positive, negative, or breaking even your property will be from day one. And we're really conservative with the numbers we plug in. And we plug in everything from building inspection fees to lawyers to property management, you name it, it's in that calculator. And we put buffers because we want to know what the numbers are doing. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is, hey, what is my property actually doing? Is the mortgage paying for itself? Will I have to, chip in per week? And we figured out your numbers were positive, but not only that, you're making, $70 per week in your pocket extra.
And it's even more than that now that we've been able to top up the offset account as well, which is just something I didn't expect either.
Yeah, fantastic. That's beautiful. Excellent. So going through, I guess, the program and getting your first property, step by step, we held your hand and walked you through that process. And
literally,
like you mentioned, it sort of happened a bit quicker than you thought initially. And before you know it, you blink and bang, you're on to your second one.
Totally, yeah. It's that whole concept of like, when's the best time to plant a tree? And it was, it's today, if not yesterday. And so that was our thought process in getting started. And now, we are on to our second property, which is just like unbelievable. Hopefully settling by the end of the month. And did not expect to be here.
That's amazing.
In like 9 months, 10 months.
Yeah, fantastic. So you guys are really kicking some big goals on the program, which is so awesome to see. So I guess just looking at your first initial decision to join the program and then go down the path of being a rentvestor, how much money do you think you probably potentially saved / made with making that decision?
To be honest, I haven't worked that out.
Well, if we look at, I guess, your first property, the purchase price alone, looking at, potentially getting an owner occupier that was about $700,000. Obviously, you ended up getting an investment that was it was around $360,000. So you've definitely saved over the $200,000.
Oh, for sure. Yes. In that regard, 100%. And I mean, when you look at rentals on the Gold Coast, if we were to be, renting elsewhere as well, they can range anywhere from 700 to 1,000. It just depends as well what your living expenses are like. But yes, we would have spent 700 easy and then had to renovate on that property.
Yeah. Wow. So a lot of savings there. And getting into a market that was rising as well. You've already had massive equity gains on your first investment. So we've been looking at the recent sort of market sales in that suburb, and you've definitely got around 20,000 instant equity in that property.
It's amazing.
I know. It's so good to see my members succeeding and just getting these amazing results. So, not only have you obviously got your cash flow, but you've also got your equity there. And because we had a strategy where we were able to go in and, plan out your future and how you're going to grow your property portfolio, you're now on to your second investment.
Yeah, totally. And I'm excited to know and learn more about leveraging those properties as we continue to grow in the future as well. So it's exciting to think about that prospect.
Yeah, 100%. Fantastic. Beautiful. So I guess what would be the number one takeaway from your journey, what you've learned on our program that you could tell the audience here that are watching at home?
Number one takeaway. That's a great question. It would be the same thing that I encourage prospects within our business. And that's whatever you're looking to search out and gain expertise on, find someone that has a proven track record and do everything that person says. And so for yourself and George, obviously there is a mega track record of property.
Yeah.
And so why wouldn't we follow someone like you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Find a mentor that's got runs on the board, someone that actually, does it themselves. And that's what I love about, I guess, our system and what we're doing here. You buy where I buy. It's really simple. I've been using this system to grow my own property portfolio. So that's why I know it like the back of my hand. And I'm literally, just saying, hey, just do what I'm doing, don't reinvent the wheel, just do what works and trust in the system.
And do you know what else was super encouraging as we were going through the process of deciding whether to work together or not? Was that everyone we spoke to on the team was either previously a client or come on the journey thanks to the Markoski method. We spoke to Belinda, longtime friend. She's got multiple properties. She's followed the system. Everyone in the process. I think Stacey has just come on board. Same thing. Previously client, now on board. And that gives me a lot of gives me a lot of faith in a company to know that clients have become team members because they believe 100% in the process, the team, and the system.
Yeah, I always laugh when I think about that because it's pretty hilarious that obviously George and I started this company and now all of our members run the company.
That's awesome. I love it.
It's a beautiful thing, I love it. And I'm helping literally, the people that are running the company, they're getting, their third, fourth, fifth investment property. So they keep growing their property portfolio too. So it's important to realize that the person that's actually helping you and holding your hand, they're buying a property too, and they're going through the exact same journey as you are.
It's super cool. I'm a little bit jealous. It's a great model.
Yeah, I love it. It's fantastic. It's just, been unbelievable. And I'm so grateful that we've got such a beautiful, awesome, dedicated team. It does make such a difference. And we are a values-based company. And I think that's so rare, especially when it comes to this sort of thing, like, property investing. So having a company that has values, that is very clear on doing the right thing and helping people, and they're doing it themselves. I've got properties in the same suburbs where my members are buying, my members are my neighbours. It's hilarious. I remember it was about 5 years ago, I actually took a trip up to Queensland and I thought I was going to be taking photos of a member's property. So we went into the development and I went through and we were doing a bit of an inspection and I was taking all these photos. And I came out and just before I jumped in the car, George goes to me, by the way, that's your investment property, Christina. And I was like, what? No way. And I was like, hang on a second, get a photo of me standing in front of it. Like, I thought it was a member's property.
That's
and then
awesome.
I walked into the next door and that was obviously a member's. And I was like, this is so awesome that I literally didn't even know that I had just walked through my own investment property.
How cool is that?
It's hilarious.
I don't know if I'm just going to assume you do know this, but we actually found out that our first investment property, the property managers also invested in that same development. I don't know if you knew that or not, but they were able to assure us that they've got a vested interest in taking care of things, making sure that they're up to scratch. And it was just like a double bonus. So we couldn't believe that either.
Yeah, well, it's pretty common because generally the on-site property managers live on-site. So, of course, they've invested. They've brought a house to live in there.
Sure.
Yeah. So maybe that's what they're referring to, unless they've got their own occupier that they're living in and maybe they've got another property as well as an investment.
Yeah, totally. It was just a cool bonus to find that out.
Yeah, well, that's what I love about, using the on-site managers. They've got skin in the game, they live there. So clearly they're going to be picking their own neighbours as your tenants and doing the proper vetting and everything else that's involved with that.
Yeah, totally. And it reminds me of another learning as to only buying townhouses versus apartments, So investments that have a portion of land
that's
larger than the others as well. So that was a big learning.
So you always want to look at either a townhouse or a house and land. And townhouse and house and land, they're both great options. And generally, as a bit of a rule of thumb, you always want to make sure you've got that land component because essentially when you're buying a brand new property, you're using depreciation. So the building itself will depreciate, but the land is the thing that actually goes up in value.
And they're not making any more of it, right?
That's exactly right. There's one thing they're not manufacturing any more of in Australia, and that is land. But we do have quite a bit of it. But in the top
We do,
100,
yeah.
it's pretty scarce at the moment. So
Yeah, totally.
getting into the right growth suburbs is the key to this strategy. And it's one of the main pillars, I guess, to succeed whenever it comes to investing. If you're getting in the right suburb, you're going to get the right capital growth. And then long term, you're going to get the right returns.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a really important key. So, yeah, fantastic. Well, it's been amazing, Ryan. I've had a really great time tonight, getting to understand more about, I guess, how you initially chose us, which was really fascinating. And super proud of yourself and Kaylee. You guys are just kicking some massive goals. You've got an amazing results, and congratulations on getting onto your second investment property in under 12 months. That's amazing.
Well, we owe it all to you guys, so can't be more appreciative. And literally, we just love telling people about you guys. So appreciate it, all
Fantastic.
the world.
Beautiful, beautiful. Awesome. Well, we've got our private session that we're going to head into very shortly. But if you've enjoyed tonight's session, if you've loved Ryan and Kaylee's story, and you'd like to find out more about positive property and being coached by myself and my team, type into the chat #WealthCall, and someone from our team will reach out to you and help you get started. Look, it's the best thing you can do to set yourself up for the rest of your future.
Wealth call, I like it. #WealthCall.
#WealthCall. Yeah, drop that in the chat below, and someone from the team will reach out and help you get on to the next steps. And we're going to have to head off now onto our private session with our group. So we'll see you guys soon if you're a part of the private session. But apart from that, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Ryan. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Appreciate you, Christina.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Enjoy your night. Bye-bye.
Ciao, team.